Sometimes we need someone to challenge us. Today I got challenged by one of my relatives about my bullshit and the fact that I'm not really that good at business. I'm good at business, but I'm not having the results that I should be having. His argument, by the end of it, of course, we had to really debate it quite a bit until we got to a certain agreement. His argument was that my potential was way higher than my results. I'm getting mediocre results. And it hurt me because he got to something that was kind of true. Because he doesn't know what I'm doing. He doesn't really understand how much I'm doing and what's the deal and what's the payoff in the future and how much I've progressed in the last year. He doesn't understand that. All he sees is like, I've built my business to be 30% more than it was a year ago. So he didn't see, still, compared to his income, is very small. But then again, we are not in the same business. It doesn't matter. But it got me thinking. It got me thinking about this idea that I started to develop a long time ago. It's like, I will simplify it, but try to understand that it doesn't have to be so expensive. I'm going to use the example of a plot of land and a house. But if you understand this concept, it's going to really change the way you see money and the way you see business. Because this is the equation to actually profit in the best way possible. So the way you profit off of a house, off of a plot of land, when you build a house, is so much more interesting than most of the businesses because you have this plot of land, which you will have forever. You're going to pay taxes on it, but they are small, depending on where you live. But you have someone else build a house on your plot of land, but you pay them once. Understand that you pay them once. But then if you rent that house, you can earn money indefinitely, even after, well, the house was built. So you pay once, but you earn money indefinitely. Understand the power of that. And understand that whenever you pay someone else to do something else, ask yourself this: if I get them to do this, will I get that benefit after they leave? If you do, that's an amazing business. And after the first 3 employees I had, I switched entirely to that model. And now, 5 years later, I still profit off of work that my first employee who did this, who was in this strategy, really, the work that she did at that point for about 4 months. She didn't work for long. I fired her because she wasn't doing good enough work. But that bad work, I'm still profiting off of that bad work. It wasn't atrocious work, but I'm still profiting. That's the point. And still, every single person I hired or I collaborated with, all of them still make me money, even if I'm not paying them. Because of this one singular concept: build it once and profit almost forever. Of course, it's not always forever, but you get the point. Have people build things for you that you profit off of. And you're going to say like, but where do I find these things? How can I find these things? You see, that's where you find a business. That once you understand yourself how to do certain things, that you profit off of them indefinitely. Now it's a question of how can I train someone else to do that thing? And if you understand systems, you get something else. Because here's the answer. Here is the answer. You can train someone to do something else. But if they leave you, now you have not only do you have to search for someone else, but you have to train them and pay them. So understand that. So how do you solve this training part? How do you train someone, okay? And you actually spend the time training them. And then when they leave, the next person you don't have to train. You might be saying like, look, you find someone else who actually knows how to do it. No, someone who's very cheap that you can train and really hire to do that work and not have to train them. You see, that's the solution. If you find this, if you understand this, you will understand how to make a business, because that's what business is. You are now doing something once, training one employee once. You probably already know the answer. Because you did trainings like this, probably, almost definitely. You trained this person to do a specific thing in your business that will not change for a long time. This employee goes away. Now, this thing that you've really trained them, if it's a video, you can give it to this other person so you don't have to put in the effort anymore. Another thing that you can do is actually make the first person who trains you, to make either a tutorial, a video tutorial, or a written manual. Understand, that is a high leverage activity, because you now have no more need to train other people except when you change systems. That's only possible if you understand how to build systems. I recommend the book Thinking in Systems for that. Understand that these things are easy to solve once you start learning skills and systems. Understand that if you just learn skills, you will become a service provider, a freelancer, someone who sells their time for money. Of course, it's going to be higher and higher and higher amounts of money. But the point is to take some money, do some transformations, because business is all about transformation. You take something from a lower value, transform it to a higher value thing, and sell it. That's all you are doing. If you think that business is something else, it's not. The point that some people think that, oh, this is not really the same when you're taking something from there and selling it here. That's a transformation. You transformed that object from being there to being here. That's a transformation. The transportation is still a transformation. It is still adding a certain value. You know where to go, get that, and then sell it over here. You understand that is a transformation as well. But if you understand skill buildings and system buildings, you will understand this formula with the house and how to do it. So you build that training in some sort of codified way. You build it as a video, as a series of videos, as a manual, and you give it to this other person. That's how easy it is. That's exactly a business. You can have this sold to other people as a business. Understand this one singular thing. You can do this for other people. Tell them like, look, I'm going to train someone to do something very specific in your business that I know how to do. Instead of paying me because I'm too expensive, you're going to pay me for a month. But I'm going to build you this. Not only will I build you someone who can do that thing, but you will also have this training on your business forever. So you don't have to train for that position anymore. That's another business. Just one singular thing. And that's the point. That's how you create value for people. That you get so much more money from doing that. You can ask 10 times more than if you were asked to actually do the job. That's what value is. It's a transformation. You take something of lower value and do a little bit of a transformation, whatever big or small it is, and sell it to a higher value. That's how easy it is. And understand that the point that I'm trying to make is that you switch what you believe. It's not about keeping score. It is about how many transformations you can make. Profit is only about how many transformations you can make. So when I got challenged by this person, I realized what was my problem. My problem was that I didn't actually calculate the risk. I calculated the risk for 5 times more next year, 5 times more than I have right now. It's a tremendously big thing. But if I did it 10 times more than that, so 50 times, how would I think? What would the system look like? And I actually realized that I would change the decision drastically. I would change the trainings differently. I would treat my employee differently. I would give them so many more different things to do. If I would aim for 50 times more in a year rather than 5 times. And I realized how would I do these things. And then the next thing I did, because that's how you do it, you start to calculate the risk and the investment. And I was like, wow, actually, there is a discrepancy in this. If my outcome is bigger and the risk is lower, like the point is that if I want to aim for 5 times, I'm taking a risk of about, I don't know, let's say 150%, whatever. I'm making up numbers, but I know exactly the numbers. But okay, let's actually go into the numbers. So if I want to 5x my business, I need to put in about, let's say 5K in about 4, 5, 6 months. So 5K. But if I want to 50x my business, I would have to put about 12K. So understand that it's just about double and a half, but I get 10 times more than if I aimed for five times instead of 50 times. That's a discrepancy that I wouldn't have known. And now I'm gonna basically make this into a rule, because when I was working as a project manager, I learned that if something works for someone, if something works, if you're applying a certain strategy for a client, a certain strategy for a employee or a collaborator, it will work with everybody, almost everybody, because it is not specific to them. You are doing something different that minimizes risk. That person is risky or that client is risky, and you've changed your whole strategy to minimize that risk with that client, with that employee. Let me give you an example. If you have a collaborator that always sends the project 10 minutes before deadline, that's a problem. That's a lot of risk. If something goes wrong, you will not have enough time to send the project to the client. You will not have enough time to deliver. So because I had that person do that to me multiple times, I felt the risk. It never materialized, but I felt it in my bones. And I realized, okay, this person needs a 1 day before deadline. So I have a buffer of 1 day. If it's possible, that's the rule. If it's possible, I'm gonna give the shortest deadline without paying more. That's one axiom that I've learned from one person, but I've applied to everybody in that business. I've learned one thing that applies to one singular person, and then I asked myself, why am I not applying to these other people that same thing? So the rule is give the shortest deadline possible without increasing the pay, because most people, most of the collaborators have a rush rate. But if you ask them first, what's your rush rate? What's your, you know, and they usually say if it's next day or in the next 2 days, depending on the workload. And I actually tell them like, look, what's the workload? How big does the project need to be so that you charge me a rush rate? I need to know so we don't have surprises. And see, you also have a good conversation over there. So yeah, now I realized I got challenged, and this challenged me and got me feeling something, a little bit of stress. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna solve this stress. I solved it. In about 2 hours, I solved it. I'm still solving it right now. But I realized that if this works for this, for what I'm doing right now, how would it look if I applied that for everything? So I will from now on, I will calculate like really a reachable goal, the amount of risk that I'm taking. I'm going to calculate it and the amount of investment that it takes. And then I'm going to do 10 times more of what's reasonable and see if I have a different distribution or the curve, like basically the risk doesn't grow as much as the outcome. So understand that if I see that as a non-linear curve, so the risk doesn't grow as fast as the outcomes, the transformations, then I'm going to use this to all of my projects and all of the things that I do, because it actually makes more sense to apply this to everything, because you gain a lot of information. Like, for instance, in my business, that curve in my business that's making me money, not the second one I'm starting, that curve is up to a point because I have certain limits in that business. So I can optimize it to a certain extent. I can optimize it towards this point. And after that, I cannot optimize it more. So because of certain limitations on the platforms. So now, but I would have really got so much if I would have thought that way when I started this business that I already have, and it's profitable. I would have benefited so much when I did that calculation, because I would have been like, oh, basically I lost about twice the revenue that I have right now. I would have had 3 times the revenue I have right now if I understood this one concept of at what point does the risk match the outcome, and understand where is the best optimized outcome. Like, because it's not really the most obvious. It's not always the outcome that's the reachable outcome that's the most optimized. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But in most cases, I've learned that it's not. You reach for something because it's approachable. But if you thought about a bigger way to reach that goal, you would probably earn more money, most of the times, with less investment and less risk and less work sometimes. Because if you think in tens and hundreds of transformations or products or whatever, you gain this power to negotiate. Understand that I'm using this concept. I use this concept in other things as well. When I negotiate with people, with collaborators, or with employees, I negotiate differently. I tell them like, look, if it's a collaborator, of course, it's easier because I know exactly how to get a lower price. I entice them with a bigger sum. And I tell them like, look, this is a very big project. And I'm not gonna not give them the project at the end. I promise that project, I give them that project, and I get a reduced rate. Because of the magnitude, this is key. Because of the magnitude of the project, I can charge less than if I get them to do a smaller project. So I reduce the amount of money. So that is a difference in curve, because I gave this person 36 projects. I told them, look, I'm gonna give you 36 projects. I promise, and I'm gonna pay you, and you're gonna see whatever. They already trusted me, so it didn't make a lot of sense to say all of that, but I said to them, and I showed them, look, I have the money for you. It's in this bank account. It's for you. I have them already. I'm gonna pay you incrementally. I don't want to pay you up front. I know that people usually are, I'm not saying that you are like this, but I'm gonna pay you in installments. Every time you deliver 6 projects, I'm gonna pay you, or whenever you ask. However many projects you finished, I'm gonna pay you. But you see, the same person is a very skilled person. And if I gave them just 1 project or 6 projects, they would have never said yes to the same price I said when I gave them 36 projects. Never. Never in a million years. But because it was a large sum of money, they said yes. So understand that is the power of magnitude of project. And understand that the curves really are different. So the outcome was way bigger for me, but I actually ended up paying less per outcome, per project. Way less. Something that was abysmal to what I would have had to pay him if I would negotiate just 1 project. Everybody knows this, but nobody applies it. But you can also really look at the risk, the payment, and the outcomes. So build the curves, understand if all of them progress linearly or some of them drag around, because sometimes as risk increases, you might have lower outcomes. That's what I call, and everybody calls, law of diminishing returns. But as long as the outcomes are higher, the more risk you take, and it's not as high as the not converging, and the money that you spend, the investment, is even lower or the same as the risk, you're just going to build the project bigger. Of course, within the budget that you have. That's the power of thinking this way. And I got this today. I used to use it for something else, but now I got the principle. I understood it, how to build it in my business that I'm building right now. I understood that I was thinking of about 200 products. Now I'm thinking about thousands of products, about 3,000 products. I jumped in just a few hours. I realized that the investment for 200 is about 4 or 5K. But for 3,000, I know it makes no sense, but on paper, it actually makes sense. Once I realized how to solve for that 3,000, it actually is about 12K. So per project, I'm getting less. Even though I'm not paying the other person less, I'm paying them the same amount. But because I've thought about a system where to build 3,000 as opposed to 200, that's the difference. I understood how to change things around in the training and the way I delegate things so that the project can grow to 3,000 products. And I think that that's a good aim. Anyways, I wrote it on my whiteboard. I also wrote, I had a target in terms of money, and I put another 0 on it.